Back to our broadcast with news that a D.C.-based grand jury has now been impaneled by Robert Mueller in the Russia investigation. We wanted to dig into what that entails. Jeremy Bash has agreed to stay with us, and we welcome back to the broadcast Peter Zeidenberg, a former federal prosecutor and deputy special counsel in the Scooter Libby case during the Bush 43 administration. Two gentlemen who know a thing or two about grand juries. So, Peter, just free associate here. I know the basics about these, the word grand just speaks to size larger than the average jury trial. What is the relationship, for starters, that a grand jury develops with the prosecutor, and what kind of power does a prosecutor have over a grand jury?
Well, the grand jury in the district would normally be seated for 18 months, and they don't sit every day. It's generally 2 or possibly 3 days a week if there's evidence to present during that time. And over the course of the month, the grand jury and the prosecutor get to know one another, and they get to develop a rapport, and it's very useful for a prosecutor in order to sort of try out theories to the case. You can tell grand jurors are generally very active in terms of asking questions to the witnesses, to the prosecutors, and from those questions, the prosecutor can understand possible weaknesses in the case and get a better appreciation for what problems a jury might have with the case down the road.
Jeremy, I know you have to leave your attorney at the door if you're called before a grand jury, and I guess that it's possible that some people don't know if they're a witness or a target when they arrive. It's just you and the prosecutor in there before the grand jury. Is that correct?
That's right. You have no lawyer by your side. You can take breaks and go into the hallway and consult with your attorney, but it's really just you being questioned by the prosecutor. Sometimes the jurors propound questions as well. But also, very importantly, the grand jury is a tool for the prosecutor to compel witnesses to show up. Because if an FBI agent is just out there conducting investigation, you can kind of say, hey, I don't want to answer questions. But if you get a grand jury subpoena, you have to show up or you're in contempt. And there, when you're in the chair, you either have to start talking or invoke the Fifth. Same thing with documents. The grand jury allows the government to get and compel documents, and I think documents are going to be a very important set of facts in this case.
Peter, if memory serves, I think it was the New York State Judge Saul Wachtler who left us with the phrase that a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. What did he mean, and why is that true?
Well, it's not an adversarial process. You don't have a defense attorney in there presenting the other side of the case, and the grand jury indicts based on probable cause as opposed to proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and grand jury doesn't have to be unanimous. So all you're getting is a majority by a preponderance of the evidence with no defense attorney, no other side of the case. It is, I don't know about the ham sandwich, but it's not a high bar, and it's very rare for grand juries to decline to indict.
Jeremy, another way of putting this, as a colleague said today, does this mean that there are a dozen or so people in Washington, D.C., riding the metro home at the end of the workday who know more and better than all of us where Mueller's thinking is, where the case is thus far?
There are probably about 23 of those individuals. That's right, Brian. That's probably the size of this grand jury. Also, I would say that there is another person in the room, a stenographer, a court reporter. And so there will be transcripts of every person's testimony, which means that if you go in there and lie under oath, you are going to jail. Now, of course, that's the same as if you were to lie to an FBI agent. But when there are court records, court transcripts, it becomes all the more serious.
Peter, do most people, you think, get that the worst thing you can do is lie to the feds?
Well, I'll tell you this, that there is a conversation that every witness connected to this case is going to be having with his attorney, his or her attorney, before they go in the grand jury. And that attorney is going to tell the witness every which way possible that their loyalty is to themselves, not to Donald Trump, not to the administration, not to the Trump organization. It's going to be to themselves and their family, and they're going to be told the only way you're not going to get out of this fine is by lying. because if you lie, you'll be almost certainly indicted for obstruction of justice or perjury or both. So tell the truth, for God's sake, and you'll be fine. And it's going to be a much different scenario than making public pronouncements to the press or putting out a press release. When you go in the grand jury, door closes, you're under oath. You can't fool around.
And Jeremy, in our closing seconds, what if reporters find out who these grand jurors are? What about approaching them? Is there tampering? Are they free or enjoined from speaking?
Secrecy. They can't talk. The witnesses and the people who go before the grand jury can talk, but not the grand jurors. I think it's all, it's just important to note, Ryan, that no one is guilty by virtue of the fact of an impaneling of a grand jury, but this is a very significant development tonight. All right, what a terrific way to learn what we learned tonight. We reserve the right to recall both of these witnesses if we need to know more about grand juries. Our great thanks to two great lawyers, Jeremy Bash, Peter Zeidenberg. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks.